To a lot of people in China, American youth are living the good life. School is relatively easy, families are relatively well off, society is relatively stable. Western parents won't make a big fuss if their children start dating early. But with the high number of deadly gun violence in recent months, China internet users are beginning to wonder why American youths are taking the good life for granted. One particular Weibo article that has been getting some attention is an article about the suicide rate among American youth. The article cites Reuters and says that 1 in 25 American youths have attempted suicide. The research results are based on in-person interviews of close to 6,500 teens in the U.S. and questionnaires filled out by their parents. Besides asking them if they have suicidal thoughts and whether or not they have ever planned or attempted suicide, interviewers also determined if the teens fit the bill for a range of mental disorders. The results were that 12% of youths had thoughts about suicide and 4% of them had made suicide plans or attempted suicide. Researchers also found that almost all teens who thought about or attempted suicide had mental disorders, including depression, bipolar disorder, attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, or problems with drugs or alcohol abuse. The research findings were a little hard for many Weibo users to accept. Some commenters expressed their disbelief, wondering what more could privileged American youth ask for. Others believed that it's just a case of children trying to get into trouble, and some wondered if it had anything to do with violent movies and video games. Let's take a look at what they had to say.
I thought American youths had it all. Why would they even think about killing themselves? They have it so good. Is it because of all the violent movies and video games? The only explanation is that a lot of them are just trying to get into trouble. I don't understand why they want to take such drastic measures. Are things really that bad?
China is also struggling with its own suicide problems. According to figures from a report from Xinhua News Agency, 287,000 people in China commit suicide every year, with another 2 million unsuccessful suicide attempts. That's a pretty staggering number. Also, according to Xinhua News, 40% of Chinese people that commit suicide do not have any mental illnesses. That's about 400 times the international average, where only 1 in 10 suicide victims made their decision under clear consciousness. China has also asked the question, who is to blame? According to the website China.org, the youth, especially those born after the 1980s, the children of the one-child policy, are often accused of being too fragile with large responsibilities. Having to cope with high pressure from early childhood is also one reason to blame. According to the online article, for Chinese children starting with primary school, parents would have to make every effort to pay large sums of sponsorship tuition to send their children to decent schools. And then for the next 12 years, it becomes the goal of every student to study hard so they would score well on their college entrance exams. After college graduation, China's job market is still difficult for students without family connections, and that often young graduates will send out hundreds of CVs without replies. China's skyrocketing housing prices also leaves most young graduates in big cities paying rent at very small apartments. Parents pool together their life savings for a down payment on their children's first apartment, without which many are unable to get married. According to Chinese scholar Yang Jisheng, uneven distribution of wealth and strict social class distinctions leave youth with fewer choices, which in turn could make them more vulnerable to depression. Many Weibo users were quick to point out that they too had similar experiences and that the situation in China is perhaps even more severe than in the U.S. Let's take a look.
I think having suicidal thoughts are pretty normal. I was 18 once, and I've also had suicidal thoughts, but look at me today. I'm still living and happy too. I think with the pressures that Chinese youths have to face, the problem must be more severe in China. This is becoming a growing problem for the youths of today. I think it has to do with the increasing importance that people place on material wealth and fragile egos. This was never a problem when I was young. China is also facing this problem. It's our education system and it's a lack of character building. There is something missing in our curriculums that are leading to high suicide rates among the country's youths.
According to the U.S. Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, suicide is the third leading cause of death for people between the ages of 10 and 24, killing about 4,600 young people annually. While in the U.S., health professionals are calling for better treatment methods and more effective ways of dealing with mental disorders. Chinese experts are advocating for social reforms to create more equal opportunities for ordinary people and a more diversified education system that prepares Chinese youths for the pressures of life.